Okay, hey guys, Anime West Reacts here. It's going to be a bit of a different video. Going to be doing manga. So, Talentless Nana just ended the anime, so I'm going to be starting the manga. Picking up right where the anime ended, which is chapter 29, The Invisible Blade, part 8. So we got the cover being Michiru facing away from us, saying, it says, "That smile will never look back again." So yeah. So we start off where Kyoya has Rentaro pretty much, or like he had choked him out pretty much and caught him. So he says, "So it was you, Sumrigawa," and he's like, "Ugh, damn it." And then yeah, he told Kyoya, "Stay out of my way." That's what you said, yeah. Let me hear. Yeah, Hiragi and Inukai are all right, and then he just doesn't say anything. Kyoya's like, "Hey." Rentaro's just like, "Who knows, I'm not sure," and something happens, or yeah, he runs pretty much. Or he does his astral projection thing and then hits Kyoya in the side of the head with a broom. And he's like, "Exactly," and so yeah, he bolts out the bathroom. And then he's like, "You shithead, stop interfering with my self-expression." So yeah, he runs down the hallway and runs into Fuko. And he's like, "Move, I'll kill you." And then she opens a window to use her wind ability. So yeah, pretty much just blows him away up into the air, and it's like holding him there, and he says, "This person killed Ryuji-san," and you see like the eyes, pretty much like the gleam in them. And Kyoya says, "Wait, don't kill him." And so then she just lowers her hands pretty much and throws him into a room to the side. And she like motions with her hand pretty much to throw him into this room to the side, and then she's like breathing heavy. And Kyoya's like, "He's not dead." And so yeah, asks Fuko if she followed him. She says, "I'm sorry, I was terribly curious about the case." And he's like, "Well, you saved me, I want to move him, could you give me a hand?" So she nods yes, picks him up with her wind, and then they take him somewhere else. Or she says, "Where should I take him?" Actually, pretty much, because yeah, he just said, "I'd like to move him somewhere else," but didn't say where. Kyoya's like, "Actually, I don't know." And Fuko's like, "What?" And then he says, "I see." And so yeah, then Kyoya's like, "That's how you move Ishi's body, isn't it?" Because yeah. And Fuko's like freaking out with his face. And you see like her hands start trembling, and everything's like blowing up around them, pretty much like the wind is like moving everything around them. Kyoya says, "I considered the possibility that this guy had an out-of-body experience and slit Ishi's throat, Ishiriji's throat, but there wasn't enough blood splatter around the interior of the room for that." And then he's like, "You got like the wind," and she just drops him pretty much. And so yeah, then Kyoya says, "Which means Ishii was murdered elsewhere." Yeah, that's chapter 29, so it's gonna be a bit of a longer video, gonna be going to at least like 34. That's what I was gonna stream this, but yeah. Since these are shorter chapters. But yeah, so found out, caught the killer of Ryuji, but then there's still the whole situation with Fuko to figure out. Apparently she moved Ryuji's body to his room, so chapter 30 got a nice cover page, kind of with the similar to the animes, like in part of the OP, where you got like all the characters like sitting and looking at the camera, like Nana in the front, Kyoya behind her, but this one has, instead of Jin, it has students So like Fuko and Rentaro and Mogo and the Ice Guy instead of Jin. So that's part 9, the Invisible Blade. So yeah, Kyoya said then Ishii must have been murdered elsewhere. You see Fuko has this like concerned kind of look on her face. And so he pretty much said what he said at the end. When he says, when I learned Tsuruoka was left-handed, I knew this couldn't be a simple case. Fuko says left-handed. And so, yeah, he says, sometimes left-handed people don't stand directly in front of vending machines. It's probably because of the relative position of their dominant hand and the coin slot. So I questioned Mogo's other followers and confirmed it with them. By the way, you're right-handed, aren't you? So Fugo says, what about it? And Kyoya says, the most obvious wound on Ishii's body was the cut to that, or Ishii's body is the cut that goes straight across his throat. But there was also a wound on his back that suggested he'd been stabbed with a blade. I held onto the body and examined the angle and depth of the stab wound on his neck. I believe it was inflicted by a left-handed person, but the wound on his neck is different. From Ishii's perspective, he was cut straight across from left to right. So yeah, getting the breakdown of why his body has 2 wounds on it. Like a ninja in a comic, I don't know if they held the blade facing outwards and quickly cut across his neck from the front. But normally if you're left-handed you do this, so like motions the direction you would cut, so you would go the other way basically. Or like this, he says. In both cases, it's the opposite of what I found on the body. From Ishii's perspective, the wound would indicate he was cut from right to left. So he was cut this way and not this way, basically. In other words, he was stabbed in the back by a left-handed person, but his throat was cut by a right-handed person. In addition to Rentaro, there would be one other person who harmed Ishii. And so Fuko then just breaks down or says, so it turns her back to him and says, I'm terribly sorry. And Kyoya says, she says, I wondered if I should tell you or not. I knew you'd suspect me, so I wasn't sure how to approach the subject. And then Kyoya just seems like exhale and says, be as detailed as possible. So she begins to explain that the night Ryuji-san died, after Yuka-san's funeral ended, I went for my daily jog. Then I spotted Ryuji trying to avoid being seen as he left the dorm. Fuko says, since we hadn't been getting along lately, I suspected him of cheating. I secretly followed him. And so yeah, and so it happened immediately after Ryuji left the path and entered the bushes, and then you hear like a scream, and she says, Ryuji-san, and so she goes over and sees he's got like this big stab to his back, and so, yeah. So he goes over to him, he says, Fuko, what are you doing here? Because you can see like he's out of it. And she's just freaking out, like, what happened, what in the world? And he says, I don't know, I was suddenly stabbed, I'm done for. So she's like freaking out, saying we should get help. And so yeah, she's like, I'll go get someone. And he says, wait, I realized something. I was stabbed by Rentaro. And so she's like, that's not important right now. And then he yells, at this rate, people will think you did it. Recently he saw Rintaro was the one that was going around killing the animals, or attacking the animals and like cutting their throats and killing them pretty much. So when he chastised him or reprimanded him, he says he started bawling, and he said he had been possessed by an enemy of humanity. He asked me to bury the animals he killed with him, but I underestimated him, and look what happened. So it was Rintaro, and then she says, I promise I'll avenge you, so don't speak anymore. And then he's just like, you idiot, why do you have to go? Why do you have to be so impulsive? And he says, seriously. And he's like, I'm tired, he says, I'm tired, listen to me. Who will believe you? Did you see Rintaro here? I didn't see him here either. There's no evidence. He's probably listening to Mogo's lecture right now like nothing ever happened. He's got an alibi. And we were friends, and Puga says, but how about you and I lately? Can we provide an explanation that the others will accept? And then, see, Nana can read minds, couldn't we have her expose the truth? And then Ishii's like, Hiragi's in hot water right now. She's probably a good girl, but it's true that people keep dying around her, and the fact that she doesn't always hear people's thoughts makes it a bit unreliable. I think we can trust Kyoya more. Fuka says, then what should I do? At the very least, we're going to fight back. And then he says, cut my throat. And she's like mortified pretty much, and he says, you can do it. You can do it after I'm dead. If you cut my throat, Kyoya-han might connect my death to the person who's been killing animals. And she's like, no, I can never do that. You see like her bawling pretty much, saying, you've always followed me from half a step behind. Don't just do it. Or Ishii is saying that as she's like crying pretty much, saying, you've always followed me from half a step behind. Don't think, just do as I say. It's okay, I'll let you know once I'm dead. And then back to the present, it says, so you did as Ishii asked and used your talent to cut its throat. And then she doesn't respond. And then she says, I lost my mind after that. I was afraid to leave Ryuji's body out in the open. I thought no one would find him and he'd be treated as though he were missing, so she moved his body back to his room so it could be found as naturally as possible. You went to meet Ishii at his room every morning, and you tried to bring the body in through the window. And she says yes, and Ishii's room was a mess because you used your wind talent. And she says, during the night I entered his room to turn the lights on and open the window, but I thought Mogo and his friends in the neighboring room would notice, so I brought his body in early the next morning. So the window was open and the lights were left on the entire time. No wonder the insects came in. And she says, I didn't consider the details. I don't dislike Ishii's decision. Or Kyoya says, I don't dislike his decision. However, the actions you took after that made the case more complicated. And she says, do you believe me? And then he says, I do, on the basis of the tracksuit I found when I snuck into your room this evening. So she falls to her knees. Kyoya says, it was covered in blood, but if you had killed him, it wouldn't make sense for it to be covered in blood. So yeah, she's got a long distance wind talent pretty much. She could have just killed him from afar where no blood would have hit her. So yeah, he says, with your talent, it would be an easy job, or it would be easy for you to kill someone from far enough away to avoid getting blood on yourself. So why did the tracksuit absorb so much blood? I imagine that after you cut his throat, and then you see like her kind of holding her hands to her chest, and she was like holding his body pretty much. And so you get like a past and present panel of her crying in the same way. And so, yeah, Kyoya says, watch Rentaro for me, I'm going to look for Hiragi. And so he wakes up. He's just thinking, piece of shit. He's looking at behind her and says, when the windows are closed, she can't use her talent, right? And so he most likely uses his astral projection to shut the window. Says idiot and throws something at her, and yeah, throws a bunch of like chalk at her pretty much to like cause a smoke screen, and runs away. So he's like, damn it, what should I do now? And then he sees a rabbit, and his little urge thing kicks in that he's got, and it's like, it's simple, I'll just make them all dirty. Popular Ishii, the beautiful Michiru, and then you see like the swirly evilness to his hands, and the Jin's behind him just like, I thought I warned you pretty much not to torment the weak. And then yeah, he freaks out and turns around to see him and says, Jin says, I once killed many of my classmates, that's why I swore an oath to never kill anyone again. I asked God not to turn me into a murderer. I prayed not Ishi, but Rentaro yells, who are you? And Jin's just going on, but now God is telling me, oh Tachibana, I will forgive you this one time, he says. And so yeah, it's like, Rentaro's just like, you're not making any sense, I'm expressing myself, normal people can't express themselves like I can. And then he just got Jin with this evil smile, says, in that case, why don't you see how I express myself? And then you got the rabbit, like daytime, and then you see Rentaro's body. Like, can't exactly make out what happened to him, but yeah, he's definitely not alive. So immediately after that, or transitioning to this helicopter arriving, Nana still hugging the dead Michiru. And yeah, Tsuruoka is here. And it says, you see like the pen, or yeah, I guess it's a pen. It says, that man finally makes his move. So yeah, that's chapter 31. Or chapter 31. Yeah. 30. So yeah, like I said, going to 34. This will be like a couple minute long video. So yeah, next up, chapter 31. Picture of the cover is Nana, child Nana in her like a soldier uniform, Tsuruoka behind her, and the chapter is titled Mind Control. So yeah, teacher's yelling for everyone to wake up pretty much. And then they're just like, what's going on? Says, teacher says, someone important has arrived for an inspection. Everyone gather in the schoolyard, get Hiragi-san and Onodera-kun, hurry. Everyone goes outdoors. There's a bunch of soldiers all lined up. And the ice kid, whose name I can't remember, said, did help finally arrive? Mogo says, by the way, where's Rentaro? Haven't seen him. Fuka goes to Kyoya to tell him, yeah, he's like, I'm sorry, Rentaro escaped. And then Kyoya just like gives his look, says, Hiragi and I were escorted back by the guy who landed their helicopter on the beach. We saw Rentaro's dead body in the woods on the way back. And Fuko freaks out like, what? Because, yeah. She says, Kyoya says, I only caught a glimpse of it, but his neck was at a weird angle. There's another murder on the island. They'd better explain that to us. And then, yeah. You got Fuko just thinking about Rentaro, and then she's like, I see, what happened to Hiragi-san, because she's just like way back and she's out of it. It's also a thing, I guess, with Fuko, kind of her revenge got swiped up by Jin from her. So yeah, Kyoyo says, leave her alone for a while. Teacher goes up to the mic, says, I'm sure you're anxious with everything that's been happening lately. That's why we've asked an important person to come. He's one of the highest ranking individuals responsible for the management and development of talent on this island, and is a military officer who may eventually become your superior. So yeah, and you got Tsuruoka. He looks at Nana, or he looks like, kind of just looks over, and you see Nana react, and she's got like this look of terror. So the guy says, allow me to introduce instructor Tsuruoka Tatsumi, and yeah, Nana is just terrified. So he like puts his feet together, says, I've heard. Tsuruoka like starts to talk or give a speech, says, I've heard about your accomplishments. Salute those who died fighting the enemies of humanity. Good luck in your battle, that is all. So yeah. And then Kyoyo's the one that speaks up, says, hey, don't be ridiculous, achievement my ass. Do you guys really have any idea what's happening on this island? And then Fuko says he's right. How many people do you think have died? And everyone starts talking. And then yeah, nice guy says, if he's supposed to be responsible, I'd like him to fulfill his responsibilities by explaining things to us. Mogo is then like, you stinking adults, you don't know anything about us, do you? And it's like, in fact, help us, aren't you supposed to protect us? And then he's just not saying anything, and you got people chattering. It's like really small. Someone says, can we leave? Why did you come here? What are you, important officer? And then you got just Nana's like terrified face pretty much, and it says, seriously, what is this? I don't get it. And Mogo's like, hey, say something. And it says, yeah, say something. Is it over? Are you listening? And then, so yeah, people just chattering basically, and then he Tsuruoka just sighs, turns around and says, that's our new record. It took you long enough to shut your mouths. How many students do I think have died? Can you tell I was wishing you all died during that time? And then Fugo's like, what? And then he goes on to say, I've raised countless talented individuals and sent them off until now, but you're the least competent among them. Despite possessing great talents, you simply whined and cried instead of attempting to fight the enemy. If you're so afraid, I don't care anymore. You cowards can return to the mainland and be comforted by your mommies. So Mogo's like, who are you calling a coward? And then Fukuoka says, not only are you cowards, but you're heartless as well. Heartless as well. There's no saving you. You're losers who aren't even angry when you're thought, even though your friends were killed. And then someone says, excuse me. Ice Guy goes up on the stage and says, can't you do something about that attitude? We're talented individuals. We came to this island because you asked us to. And Tsuruoka's like, I said you could leave. I expect you to return all the money you spent using the facilities on this island. And then someone in the crowd's like, really? You're going to threaten us? And then he says, I'm not threatening you. And then Ice Guy says, are you saying ordinary humans can fight against enemies of humanity? And then he's like, yeah, what can you do? And then pretty much immediately Ice Guy gets like knocked down, or he like falls or something, because you see like the ends of his hair get like singed, like Tsuruoka shot at him, and then he says, eek, or he like screams pretty much, and then Tsuruoka says, this is a threat in ordinary human style, got it? So like he actually like shot the gun at him, and I think he just like dodged or something, or like tripped or got hit in the head or something. And then Tsuruoka like looks back at the crowd as they're all cowering. Yeah. And he's like, I know you're anxious, you were raised for your talents, but now that you're on the island, you keep dying. But what I want your selfish brains to understand is just how bad the situation is. This island is already the front line in the war against the enemies of humanity. Yeah. And he says, Mogo's like, maybe so, but there's nothing we can do. And then you see like Tsuruoka look over at him, and then he says, you're right, there's nothing you can do. Many of your friends are fighting on the front lines right now. Even ordinary humans without talents are fighting. If we lose, the mainland will be conquered, your homes will be burned to the ground, and your friends and families will be slaughtered. Even after humanity is exterminated, you'll probably still say there's nothing you can do. And he like clenches his fist and like, despite possessing special talents, there's nothing you can do despite the talents you've got, pretty much. And then Ice Guy's like, but we've never fought before, we've never properly trained. And then Tsuruoka's like, what you need isn't combat techniques. And then he goes to Moguo's like, Ijimo Moguo, you were brought to this island after you were apprehended for starting a fire at your school, correct? But I know it was your follower that started the fire. Your teachers suspected you, but I know the truth. You protected your followers. And then he's like, how do you? And then he's like, Corey Seiya. Okay, so that's nice guy's name. Seiya. And he says, you lost your sister in a car accident, right? During the incident, you thought if I'd been better at using if you'd been better at using your ice talent, could have stopped the runaway car before it crashed into you. Seiya like puts his hand over his mouth and like falls to his knees because he like probably a sore spot for him. And then Tsuruoka's like, and the rest of you, I sent you here after thoroughly investigating you. We're going to fight together. Of course I know you can't ask someone you don't know to watch your back. Some of you were persecuted because you were talented. Some of you feel it's unfair that you were torn from your families because the government recruited you, so why did you come here nonetheless? Isn't it because you have something you want to protect? Like, yeah. For some it's your pride, your friends, a promise you made to yourself, your boys and girls with passionate souls. Recall that resolve. Someone has died. And then we got Nana, and he says, Inukai Michiru. And yeah, Nana's like shocked. And so yeah, he's like, here she was a healing presence to you all. And it's like, everyone's like, what? No. She was a kind girl who couldn't even kill an insect. Her talent wasn't suited for war. She died a heroic death after fighting an enemy of humanity. And yes, it's like Michiru-chan. And everyone's like, no, there's no way. And Tsuruoka's like, that's all I have to say. You wish to return to the mainland, step forward after you've offered a silent prayer to the little soldier. That was Inukai Michiru, that is. And so Mogo's like, rah, I'll fight. Michiru-chan healed me once. We can't just sit here after Michiru-chan was killed. And Kyoya's like, hey, wait. Yeah, he's pretty much just aroused everybody's spirit to fight. And Kyoya's like, he hasn't explained anything. He's saying he won't do anything. And so Mogo's like, shut up. Some things are more important than life to a man. And Seiya, then Tsuruoka's like, quiet down, coward. And Seiya says, just now I was told what it is I must do. And then it's like Tsuruoka-san. Tsuruoka sensei, everybody rushes over to him. They got Nana and Jin in cat form. You can assume it's Jin in cat form, because Cat is just like looking at him. Nana's looking on in like kinda shock. Bit of fear and shock, and so we get her alone with Tsuruoka. she just got her head down, and he says, I arranged to meet with you under the guise of needing to speak with the leader because it seemed like you had something to say. And he says, I taught you everything you know, how to manipulate people, how to lie, how to use poisons, every other way there is to kill. When you finished your training, you said, who cares about talents? Humans can already fly. Guns kill faster than psychokinesis. We can even freely manipulate the minds of others, you said. And he's like, do you still feel that way? And she's like, right now I don't know how I feel. You raised me, I am your sheep. Everything I do is yours. I even wait for your permission to breathe. But Michiru, was she truly an enemy of humanity? So like she starts to look up at him, and you just see this darkness. And she's like, I lost my mind. We're finished. He'll never forgive me for asking this. I'll be reassigned. No, I'll be killed. It's like freaking out inside. So he just comes over and like says, you're doing fine, and like puts his hand on her head. She's like, what? And he says, since your parents were killed, your heart has been like a frozen river. I'm glad you're experiencing ordinary human emotions. You shouldn't be thinking about morality right now. You should be acknowledging that you're sad because you lost a friend. For now, cry until you can't cry anymore, and then imagine. And she's like, imagine what? If the man who killed Inukai Michiru suffered as much as you are right now, you're a fine person for crying over a friend's death. But what about them? Weren't they smiling? And he's like, hate them. Hate is what drives the living. And then, she's like, but the man who killed Michiru is dead. Who should I hate? The other enemies of humanity? And he says, you can hate me. And then I was like, what? And he says, you're my subordinate. Subordinates have no choice but to obey their superior officers. It's my fault you're fighting alone. And he like pulls her close pretty much. And she like starts crying pretty much. And it's like, your pain, your despair, I'll take all of it. You can still fight, can't you? And she says, yes. And he's like, good, I have 2 rewards for you for all you've done. First, we'll take Inukai Michiru's body. And Nana's like, why would you do that? And he says, talented individuals with power to resurrect are incomprehensible to us. I had the body examined. Her heart is stopped, but her body temperature doesn't go down. In other words, despite being an enemy of humanity, if she was your friend, then I want to do everything I can to save her. And you got Nana like looking at him. He says, will they allow that? Forgiving an enemy is proof of the strength humanity fosters or something. And she's like, thank you. Like fleetingly kind of thank yous. And he says, your other reward is I'm giving you an assistant. They completed the same training you did. They're your junior. I'll introduce you later. And then Nana's crying, thinking Michiru. They might be able to save Michiru-chan for Michiru's sake. I will defeat the enemies of humanity. And then you see them putting Michiru in a body bag. Or the assistant that he was mentioning puts Michiru in a body bag. And then the girl immediately goes over to Tsuruoka and is like rubbing all up on him and says, I have stowed the body of the enemy of humanity. I packed her into a bag. But are we really going to save her? Won't the old men in the council be mad? And this new girl says, I don't want to get in trouble. Then he says, Makabe Moe. Sometimes I have prisoners dig holes, and other times to fill them in order them to fill them in. And so I immediately just start shooting Michiru pretty much. It says, that's why I'm having Hiragi do right now. You don't want to end up like that, do you? you understand, don't you? And like he looks at her, and you got this like very, very like evil, menacing looking panel. So yeah, and then she's just like, yes sir, if Nana-senpai betrays us, I'll kill her, sir. So yeah, pretty much mind control, like this chapter, the title was. It's basically brainwashed Nana to follow his orders by, rather than being cruel and cold to her, he's nice to her. It's like a very twisted way of going about it, because rather than, he basically gives her hope and then extinguishes that hope without her knowing. So chapter 32, titled Mind Control versus Survival of the Fittest. So yeah, he pretty much gave Nana hope of getting Michiru back, and then went and executed Michiru or Michiru died, but he pretty much like made sure she was dead for good, most likely. Okay, then got Tsuruoka leaving, everyone's seeing him off. Saya saying, you're leaving already, and then he says, I must head to another battlefield. Mogo says, sir, wish you could have taught us more, and then Kyoya's like, no matter how I look at it, I feel like we're being abandoned. And Mogo's like, you're still saying that? And Kyoya's like, where are the remains of where are the enemies of humanity coming from, and how many are there? How are we supposed to handle them, and you expect us to fight against them without any explanation or instructions? And then Tsuruoka's like, specific orders will be sent later. I hope nobody dies until then. And then Tsuruoka's like, Onodera, Kyoya, you seek protection and safety, correct? That and the ability to trust you guys. And then he says, then I should tell you, when I return, I will report to my superiors that you all should be withdrawn from this island. Just like shocks Kyoya. And then he says, I plan to transfer you to a place near the mainland, your national treasures. Yesterday I decided you to fight against the enemies of humanity with courage, but I decided it's too soon for you to engage in actual battle. And then yeah, Kyoya is just looking at him, doesn't say anything, and then Tsuruoka's like, are you satisfied? And then says like, hey you, can't you see he's thinking of us? And then got Nana there, and it says, listen closely to your leader and work together. Or Tsuruoka says, listen to your leader and work together, and Nana's like, back in high spirits, like, guys, let's do our best. So Tsuruoka gets to the beach to get on his helicopter, and Nana says, excuse me, Michiru-chan, or Inokai Michiru, please do what you can for her. And then it says, you pretend to come see me off so you can remind me of that. That's not why I came. And then you see a butterfly try to land on Tsuruoka. And then it's like, you shouldn't follow people, I'm sorry. Or blah. Tsuruoka says you shouldn't follow people, and then Nana says, I'm sorry, and the butterfly is about to land on him when Tsuruoka immediately knocks it away, and then it flies up into the sky, and then he shoots it. He like pulls his gun, and Nana's like, what? And then he starts shooting at it. And yeah, he starts shooting the gun at the butterfly, and then you got Jin sitting behind her, and it says, what is a butterfly doing on a beach so far from any followers? So shocked, Nana like turns around because she wasn't expecting that, and then Tsuruoka says, I assume you were trying to follow us. Perhaps you should have transformed into a sea louse. And Jin just like smiles, and then we go back to, he says, I pay great attention to appearances. And so we go back to the school with Kyoya and Fuko, and everybody, Mogo's like, let's avenge Rintaro, and it's like, yeah. There's two followers now are like, yeah. Kyoya's saying, explained to them how Rentaro was killed Ishii. Mogo assumed Rentaro was being controlled by the enemy of humanity. I left him alone after that, but are you okay with that? And then Fukuda was like quiet for a moment, says, I don't think we should frighten the others unnecessarily, and he's like staring at her, and he's like, is something wrong? Or she says there's something wrong, and he's like, by the way, my dear, why have you been standing next to me lately? Will you? She was like, will you be my friend? Fukuda's like, it feels presumptuous to ask to be your friend. But before Ryuji-san died, he told me to turn to you for help. And Kyoya is like, doesn't say anything for a moment, and is like, I see, I'm actually not very good at fighting. Going for it, I'd like you to handle all violence for me. So yeah, like this, where you got him in the back, and then Fuko like doing the attacks, and then she's like violent, very well. And then Kyoya says, I want to meet Ishii's expectations. And yeah, and they're like, magnet guy is like for Rentaro, and then go back to Jin, who's got all these guns pointed at him, and he's like, Tsuruoka saying, transformation, I see. You're a survivor from 5 years ago. I believe your name is, and then Jin's like, it's Tachibana Jin. Did you also spot me 5 years ago? At the time I was leading the evacuation, Tsuruoka says, at the time I was leading the evacuation of all the regular employees from the island. Then Jin says, some were shot and killed when they approached the ship seeking help. Was what they did so wrong? And then Tsuruoka says, don't forget that you're the ones who started fighting amongst themselves. And then he's like, Jin says, I'll admit that we were foolish, but why are you making Nana murder her classmates? Then he says, every once in a while we find survivors like you. They often describe conspiracy theories, but they disappear without striking a single blow against the system. And then Jin says, I have no intention of trying to strike a blow against you. I just feel sorry for Nana because you treat her like a disposable pawn. And so yeah, then Nana's like, Tsuruoka, this man always acts this way. He's been following me around. And then Tsuruoka's like, Hiragi, go back to school. And she says, but his talent is very dangerous. He can copy the talents of all. And then Tsuruoka says, that's why I'll handle him. And Jin says, Nana, don't be fooled. He claims he'll fight me alone, but he actually just wants to have a conversation. He doesn't want you to hear. Aren't you curious? Shouldn't you stay here? Then Tsuruoka yells Hiragi, and she says, yes sir, take care, and she immediately runs off to school. And Jin's like, I've been rejected again. So like he holds up his hand, so everyone like backs off pretty much, and says, Tsuruoka's like, prepare to depart. So everyone goes and gets the boat or the helicopter thing ready, carrier. And then Jin says, so you do have something secret to discuss. Isn't this you asking me on a date? And Tsuruoka's like, isn't it more convenient to have fewer people around? And he's like, I respect the strong. As far as I know, you're one of the strongest talented individuals to exist. The various stadiums are all, and Jin says the various stadiums are all different sizes, but every year someone's crowned the home run king. I'll take your words to mean a similar honor. Tsuruoka then says, however, officially you're already dead. You have no allies left to you in this world. Bleh. And Jin's like, I've been wondering what to do. And then Tsuruoka's like, swear loyalty to me. And he's like, I'll treat you better than anyone else. I'll tell you everything you want to know. So he holds out his hand. Jin's like, I appreciate the offer, but I know how strong I am. The same way humans know they're smarter than monkeys. Even monkeys seek strong bosses, don't they? And Tsuruoka says, I've already identified 2 properties of your talent. How about that? How about now? And Jin has like a moment, or it's like a one of those kind of moments where like has his hand over his face pretty much to like not show his reaction. Blah. And Jin's like, what? And Tsuruoka says, you want to know the truth? That's why you transformed into a butterfly and tried to sneak onto the helicopter. But wondering if you truly had no other options, I tried putting myself in your shoes. You could transform into a bird and fly after the helicopter. However, the helicopter easily travels at over 200 kilometers an hour. Not even a swallow or fragile bird could keep up. You'd eventually lose sight of it. Then there's the other option, and this is something I want to ask you. Why didn't you transform into one of my subordinates and sneak on that way? And then Jin doesn't say anything, and Tsuruoka's like, were you afraid you'd be discovered on the way? But transforming into an insect carries a large risk of being crushed underfoot or blown away. You can become animals or insects, and based on how you survived the fighting years ago and what Shiragi said, you can transform into talented individuals. However, can't transform into ordinary humans. There's no need to fall silent, Tsuruoka says. Even if I'm right, this isn't a weakness, though it's somehow said that humans are the only things you can't transform into. Jin's like, what's the other one? And Tsuruoka says, a weakness, you could even say it's fatal. It's like shows Tsuruoka's gun in Jin's head pretty much. Then Jin just smiles. And he says, interesting. Then we go back to Nana, and it's, when he was telling her not to be fooled, and then this new girl comes up to Nana and says, Nana Shinbai. And then Nana turns around to see this new girl, and she's saying, nice to meet you, I'm Moe, the instructor told me all about you, you must be, Nana's like, you must be, blah. And then she's just like, I respect you, what should we do next, who's your current target? And Nana's like, I haven't really thought about it. And he's like, Moe's like, there you go again, tell me. And it's like, hey, Moe says, I want you to teach me so that we can defeat the enemies of humanity. Yes. And then she just is like sparkling. And then Nana's just like, is this girl okay? So yeah, then got Nana sitting outside the gates, thinking that she can't sleep. No, that's not it. I don't want to sleep in that bed. I hope Tsuruoka is able to save Michiru-chan, but for him to do that, I need to fulfill my duty. So she's still thinking, but is this really? And she's looking at the estimated kill count thing. When Jin comes over, like, hey, was just thinking about visiting you. Mind if I sit next to you? And then Nana's like, you seem to be injured. This is a warning. If I transformed into Kyoya, then it would be like it never happened, but I want to experience this pain and humiliation for a little longer. And then Nana says, I don't understand the thinking of perverts, but it seems like you really escaped with your life. Barely escaped with your life. And then Jin says, if I let him go after taking just one arm too, if I kill him, I'll never learn anything. I want to know the truth. He knew that as well. And he says he's a terrifying man, and I don't mean how he identified the properties of my talent. He instantly identifies what people want and their innermost desires. Tsuruoka, his true strength is the ability to control people. And Nana says, this reminds me of when you transformed into Michiru-chan. It was right here. And then she like grabs where he got injured, and he like screams pretty much, or he tries to, but she's like covering his mouth and says, "Sorry, I figured it out." And then Jin says, "What? I figured, or what did you figure out?" "When you landed on Tsuruoka's shoulder as the butterfly, he instantly brushed you away. That's when I thought it was strange. That I was strangely quick for a butterfly. No, the direction the butterfly fled." Blah. Butterfly flew into the air above Tsuruoka-san's head. There were plenty of other potential blind spots. You could have fled behind him or beneath him, but instead you fled up. He spotted you flying and you ended up getting shot at. Sudden gunfire made everyone present look up into the sky with the glittering sun behind you, and then he's like, because yeah, she figured that out. And then Nana says, "You wanted to blind them, didn't you? I don't know how insects feel, but I doubt they'd want anyone to see them molting. Come to think of it, I've never seen the moment of your transformation before. I expect you were skillfully guiding me so that you wouldn't be seen." And so he's like, "So what are you trying to say, huh?" And she just smiles and says that without being able to transform, you're going to die here. Bleh. So yeah, Nana's pretty much figured out, for the most part, how Jin's talent works. Bleh. Do that, but yeah. So yeah, Talentless Nana, chapter 33, Survival of the Fittest, part 4. Say this nice panel of like, how to say, you can't transform while people are watching. These like cat eyes, looking at Jin, and she says, "Am I wrong? Strongly because you can transform, but if you can't transform, then you're an ordinary human. Am I wrong?" And you see like the eyes, or Nana's eyes, with this like glassy kind of effect. And so she's like, "What's wrong? You could become Moguo or blah. You could become Moguo or Kyoya. Shouldn't you be transforming into a talented individual so you can retaliate?" And Jin's just like, "Calm down. What do you think killing me will accomplish? So you admit that's your weakness." And then Jin says, "I told you Michiru-chan was in danger." So she relaxes her hand and says, "I see." Jin says, "I see. You're wondering why I didn't just rescue Michiru-chan, aren't you? I respect that. You won't say that out loud. I will always be on your side." And then she like immediately like grabs his throat and starts choking him, telling him to shut up. It's like, "I will definitely defeat the enemies of humanity for Michiru-chan's sake too." And then he looks at her, and her hands like slide off. And she's just like looking at him, like looking at her hands, and he's like looking at her with this like eye, pretty much. And then she starts like floating up into the air, like, huh? You see her like arms go like to the side. She's doing like a T pose up in the air, and he's like, "That's right, Nana. Too shy to transform while people are watching." And so she's like, "What? Then why? How?" And then he just snaps his fingers, and she goes like flying off into the forest. And so yeah, he's like, "It's telekinesis. It's simple talent, but depending on how you use it, it can be quite powerful." And then Nana's like, he says, "Now then, I thought you identified my weakness as a transformation, or as a transformer. I shouldn't be able to use other talents without transforming. So why is it that I was able to blow you away using telekinesis? Why did the gentleman, lady, or standing before you, use telekinesis against you without transforming? Think about it. By the way, as far as I know, there isn't a single talented individual who possesses more than 2 talents." And then Nana's like, thinking about all these times, and she's like, no, it can't be. And she's like, you've been transformed this whole time. And yeah, she's like, that appearance belongs to someone else, someone whose talent is telekinesis. And then Jin's like, that's right, this isn't the real me. And she's like, it's over this whole time. This man, no. This mysterious and unknowable monster has been toying with me in the palm of his hands. So you got this nice, like, panel of, like, these monstrous hands, and on it just in them, and it's like over her and below her, like it could just crush her at any moment, pretty much. And then Jin's like, it's such a shame. I previously swore to God that I'd never kill another person. Dear God, please don't make me become a murderer. So I prayed. But now that I think about it, you're an atheist. So she like closes her eyes, and when she opens them again, you got Jin like kneel down in front of her, and he's like, just kidding. Sorry for what happened to Michiru-chan. I could have saved her from Rentaru's clutches at any time. I was testing you to see how being around Michiru would change you. Forgive me. Nana's like, so you'll forgive me for trying to kill you. Jin says, you've been killing the talented individuals that you call enemies humanity at Tsuruoka's orders, isn't that right? And she said, yes, I'm glad. He's like, I'm glad you're being honest. I'll admit there are lowlifes like Rentaru who aren't worth keeping alive. I'll continue to stay out of the way of your crimes. However, the man who issues such cruel orders to you proposed that he and I work together. So I was like, what? Yeah. That's a pretty big thing there. And then he's like, what do you suppose that means? Why don't we think on that together? That's enough for tonight. My stomach hurts after that. And Nana's just like looking in shock, and he says, try not to stare too much. I can't transform, otherwise you're embarrassing me. So she ends up looking down, or she like looks away pretty much of him, and then she's thinking, Tsuruoka-san asked an enemy of humanity to work with him then, and she thinks about everyone she's killed so far, so like, yeah, pretty much everyone she's killed so far. She's basically like, why have I been doing all this? If he was gonna ask an enemy of humanity to work with him, then what have I been doing all this for, basically? But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, comment down below. I'm gonna do stop at 33 since it's gonna be too dark if I blah. Maybe I can do it. We'll see. I'm not doing anything. This might be better. But yeah. It's like moving anyway. Chapter 34. Yeah, loading. So yeah, I'll stop here and we'll pick up another time. This is the start of the next arc. So yeah, hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, sorry it's really long, but yeah, it's like a couple chapters. Hope y'all enjoy it. If you do, make sure to leave a like, comment on the video, subscribe for more anime reaction reviews and manga reviews. Check links down below to my Twitter, Twitch, and Discord. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. So yeah, later.